Hello, welcome back. I'm Brian here, and so I just did my top 10 best movies of 2017. So now I'm getting to my top 5 worst movies of 2017. And granted, this is a very mild list. This isn't like utter junk like the Emoji Movie or the Transformers The Last Night or Rings or Friend Request or The Snowman, because I honestly didn't watch those movies and I didn't want to pay to see them, so they will not be on the list. But for the movies that I did watch in the theater for 2017, these were the 5 films that just left me disappointed. And I'll explain ratings that I've done over there in a little bit. So number 5 was My Little Pony the movie. I watched this movie because way back in the day I watched the show and I enjoyed it a whole lot. I was curious of why it was gaining a following of adult men, and I happened to find out the enjoyment of it. I liked the writing, I liked the animation, I liked the characters, and I liked the world building that the show was doing. And they announced for a few years ago that they were going to make a movie, and so I was like, oh, okay, I wanted to see what they were going to do. And so I went in, and I mean, while I did give it a high five, I found that it was a film that would please the fan base, but not not anyone else. So the fan base in like the kids, the little the girls and possibly little boys that watch the show, but everyone else is just they're not going to enjoy it, and it's for reasons like sloppy, writing, dialogue, just things happening that don't make sense. The songs being very childish, um, and you might say, well, what do you expect? It's a show for little kids. Well, Frozen was a show for families and especially young audiences. Phineas and Ferb, um, and those have very catchy songs. Why can't My Little Pony be? Why does it have to be different and be terrible? Um, and I'm the songs. I mean, they have like catchy like tunes, but the lyrics are just kind of, yeah, just kind of stupid. So I really think they need to invest in a lyricist. Um, I mean, they had some talented voice actors, and they had Emily Blunt, Zoe Saldana, Kristen Chenoweth, but and the original cast from the TV show. So they did put a lot of effort into the movie, but I felt like overall it was just a disappointment and not representing what made the show great. So that was it, and yeah, now I'm gonna get judged for watching that. Number 4 is Justice League. I gave it a wave. I found it disappointing yet hopeful because the editing was atrocious. They, because you would probably be very confused. I wasn't so much because like I knew who the characters were. I'm a big DC Comics fan. Loved the TV shows, the animated ones, and the CW ones going on right now. And you can say they're cheesy as all get out, but it's still find enjoyment in the Arrowverse from CW. They yeah, and it's in I think Justice League suffered a whole lot mostly because of the changing of the guard from Zack Snyder to Joss Whedon, um, due to Zack Snyder's unfortunate tragedy in the family, and so he had to step down from his role, and Joss Whedon took over, and so they changed the tone of the movie, which I think they needed to do, because what they were doing wasn't working, and maybe they just need a different director if they want to continue that tone, or creative head. But right now they're trying to make it more lighthearted and enjoyable, and I think that's what it needs to do, but still keeping some dark tones to it. Um, because Superman was a lot jolly, well, not jollier, that's probably not the right word, but he was a little more lively. He smiled a bit. Yay. Um, and other characters were great. The characters for Justice League were just fine, except for the villain. He was terrible, terrible CGI. Yes, terrible CGI, terrible editing. Um, Colors were kind of weird, and it's because of the reshoots and everything like that. So it's a very inconsistent movie. But I do have hope that once they finally get like some security in like who's in charge, I think they're going to make, some fantastic movies. So far, the standalone movies have done loads better than the teamwork movies or the group collaborative movies like Suicide Squad or Batman vs Superman and now Justice League. Number 3 is Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Men Tell No Tales. Why do they keep making these movies? This is a stupid movie. The very first movie is the only one that, is good. I mean, yes, that's my opinion. Jack Sparrow in the first movie, the reason he was nominated, or Johnny Depp was nominated for Best Actor for that movie, was because he was a brilliantly written character in that movie. He was smart, he was cunning, he was brilliant, he was a backstabber, and he had the persona of a drunken idiot. But all the while being a very dastardly pirate that was very dangerous. Here, or for the other movies, he's just a drunken idiot. Literally is. And he just happens to get things right because the writing in the movie says he has to. So that is the reason why. I mean, it's just that's why. So I don't find any enjoyment in Jack Sparrow or following his adventures because he's just a bumbling fool that is just extremely lucky, and it's only because the director in the movie says he has to be on the winning side. So, anyway, didn't find it any more enjoyable. The characters were bland, and and they need to stop rebooting these movies. Number 2 is The Dark Tower. Why would you try to mash 8 books into a 90-minute movie? It's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Granted, I've never read any of the Dark Tower books, and so I may not know a whole lot about, or I know maybe nothing about the Dark Tower, but I was taken to see this movie by a friend of mine who has read all the books, and he very much enjoyed them, and he found it disappointing. And not only did I find this disappointing, I just found it stupid. Editing was also atrocious. Idris Elba, Matthew McConaughey, the 2 actors that stand out from here, the gunsman and the Man in Black, they just look bored out of their minds, and they look like they're putting as little effort into it as possible, or as much effort as they can into a horribly written movie. Idris Elba looked like the action sequences looked boring as all get out. Nothing interesting happened. And that's a shame because I think this could have been a lot better as a miniseries on TV, like an HBO show. I think people have been trying to petition for that to be made. And I hope that it does in the future, but right now, people know The Dark Tower as a terrible movie. And so, in the number 1 worst movie on my list is Beauty and the Beast with Emma Watson. My gosh, this movie just takes the charm out of what made the 1991 animated classic, and just bloats it into a 2-hour movie. Unnecessary, stupid. I think the only good casting they did was for Belle's father. He was actually really good, and he wasn't like a bumbling fool from the first one. And I liked the the father in the animated one because he was smart. I mean, he was smart, but he was just a little clumsy and just a little eccentric. But here they made him, it's like I can believe that this guy is Belle's father. But like everything else that they try to do with this movie, the new things that they're trying to explore are just pointless and unnecessary. It's like we don't need to know about Belle's mom. We already know from the first one that she's most likely dead. But they explored that in this movie through one of the stupidest things possible, a transporting book, or a book that makes you transport places. I'm like, what the heck is this for? And man, it was just really, really dumb. Like, the Beast can get out anytime he wants. and they pepper in some new songs in there because, oh hey, we want to get nominated for Best Original Song, so let's make some new songs. The Beast has a song in there while Belle's leaving to save her father from being arrested into a psychiatric hospital instead of dying out in the snow like from the original. And in the original, it was so, like, the emotion was so raw and just powerful by a single roar from the Beast. the roar of despair that he's going to be a beast for the rest of eternity, um, because he let her go. Um, and that was all we needed. That was the emotional punch the audience needed. Here, he sings a song. What the heck? This, and it's like like saying like, oh yeah, I did the right thing. She's gonna come back for me. Yay, yay, yay. It was that kind of song. It was stupid. You don't need a 3 minute song to, to convey your emotion. All you need is a roar. Um, and oh my gosh, it was stupid. And also, I mean, since they introduced the transporting book, why not use the transporting book to, go to your father? See the kind of problems that it brings up? There's no chemistry between the Beast and Belle. The Beast is despicable. And yes, he's supposed to be portrayed that way in the animated one, and in this one, but there has to be the ability for redemption in this character, and they I don't want to see him like I don't want to see him redemptive in this movie because of how much of a jerk he is. He yeah, he's just really, really, really mean. And like in the animated one, we already we have a better understanding and compassion for the beast. And I'm trying to figure out how they did that, but they didn't make him do like really horrible things, and he did that to Bella. He said really mean things. That I'm just like, oh, I'm done. I'm not gonna. There's no way I'm gonna fall in love with you now. And here they just, yeah, they forcefully try to make the romance work. The ballroom sequence, the very famous ballroom sequence, is terrible. The cinematography was boring. The lighting was awful. It was dark, despite the hundreds of candles that they have in that scene. It was just really dark. Whereas the original, it was so bright and colorful, and they revolutionized CGI for animation. And how the camera pans from the chandelier down to the floor and up to where the Beast and Belle are dancing. I mean, it was just a really beautiful scene in the animated one. And here, it's nothing. I'm just like, come on, do something that's like beautiful, but it just seemed really limited. And that was the thing that, it didn't disappoint me the most. But yeah, LeFou was also a disappointment. He, in the original, he was a bumbling, idiot that was bowing down to everything that Gaston said and loved it. And here he's, he is playing a little smarter than he is. He's a little wiser, and he tries to give Gaston good advice while trying to win his heart, which obviously isn't going to happen because Gaston doesn't swing that way. He has his eyes on Belle, and LeFou. I mean, he's treated like like garbage in both movies, but what made LeFou hilarious was that he didn't care as long as Gaston liked him, and here he's a little more independent, and I think that they probably could have done it better if they just didn't call him LeFou, because that means the fool. You could call him Le Wise or Le Smart, or but don't call him LeFou. They yeah, and I said the character designs were awful, for the most part. The songs, they just felt lifeless, because of their limitations with the CGI in a live action environment. Yeah, it just does not translate well. Like, the wardrobe is so freaky and terrifying. Good night. Anyway, but a lot of people liked this movie. This was like $1 billion+ movie at the box office. For both the global and domestic gross. So it made its money, but I really think it was not justified. I think this movie was awful, and yeah, but the one good thing it did was just remind me of how much better of a movie the 1991 original animated classic was, and there was a reason why Beauty and the Beast was the first animated feature to be nominated for Best Picture. So, there you have it. That's my top 5 worst movies of 2017. And let me know your thoughts. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I can't wait for what's happening in 2018. I'm sure I'm going to find some more stinkers to hate on for next year. But until next time, I'm Brian, and I will see you at the movies.